welcome to another video in our Green Dream series. I'm ESG Clarity Deputy Editor Natasha Turner, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Laina Draeger, Senior Portfolio Manager and Director of Portfolio Strategy and Responsible Investing at Los Angeles Capital. So it's great to have you with us today.
Thank you. Very nice to be here.
Great. So to kick off, how do you integrate ESG or sustainable factors into your investment process?
Sure. Well, if it's okay, maybe I can provide a little bit of context for our investment process. I think it will just help to set the stage a little bit. So our investment philosophy is really rooted in the belief that markets are dynamic and that investor preferences for various characteristics are always going to be evolving and changing through time. So in a really simple example, preferences for value or growth or small cap or large cap are always going to be changing and evolving. And, sustainability and ESG is a really natural fit for this. And so we've been integrating, ESG metrics in our model since inception, looking at governance and things like that. But it's been really interesting to see as the emphasis on sustainability and more recently climate in particular has really evolved, we've been able to incorporate additional factors that are really specific towards that. So in that context, we look at ESG and sustainability focused factors through the lens of a variety of different factors. So we look at long-term factors, medium-term factors, and short-term metrics related to ESG and sustainability. So I can just give a couple examples of those. On the long-term spectrum, for example, we have a dedicated ESG model. And here we're really trying to look at, what makes a successful management team, specifically through the lens of sustainability. What companies are managing their human capital well, their natural capital well. For this, we really hone in on the SASB framework, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, to really identify the most material key issues at the sub-industry level. And that really helps us to gauge, what we think are going to be successful management teams in the future. On the medium term, we look at things like ESG sentiment, looking at really what are the capital flows associated with ESG today? Are investors generally rewarding that? Or are they kind of pulling back on that given other things going on in the world? We also recently introduced a climate opportunities factor, which I'm pretty excited about. And for this, we're using machine learning techniques to identify companies that are really showing leadership and that we think are well suited to thrive as the world transitions to a lower carbon economy. So we use machine learning techniques to really identify companies on a variety of different climate specific metrics. And then lastly, on the short-term basis, we incorporate ESG news events. So we're really interested in understanding whether a price movement is justified or unjustified, whether it's likely to continue if there is negative ESG controversy or broader controversy, it's likely to continue in that direction. Whereas if it's not justified by a news event or something fundamental in the company, it's likely to mean revert. So we incorporate ESG news there. So it's really kind of multifaceted. We like to look at ESG through a lot of different ways. Our whole research team is really tasked with the duty of thinking about all of our factor development through the lens of ESG where it's appropriate.
Great. And so you've mentioned some, climate opportunities and things there that are possibly expanding your scope, perhaps, but there are clearly still areas of ESG that are more developed than others. So how do you ensure your ESG portfolios are properly diversified?
Sure, yeah. I think that's really the benefit of a quantitative process. And so, our process is 100% quantitative. And so we do have, extensive breadth in our, universe coverage in all of our portfolios. We cover over 10,000 securities globally. And all of our portfolios are really, very risk conscious, depending on the client's risk budget that will differ, but they're all highly diversified. And so I think it's interesting as we, even for our, we'll call it ESG targeted portfolios where really clients have wanted to have the sustainability focus elevated, whether it's climate, whether it's broader ESG, whether it's a social aspect, even for those portfolios that are more nuanced with regard to ESG, we're still applying our core alpha model, which incorporates a variety of different, ESG and non-ESG financial metrics. We look at a wide variety of different, value, earnings, market momentum related factors. And so it really allows us to have a unique lens through which to look at each company. We have a lot of different inputs going into each of our views for each, stock that we're holding in the portfolio. So it allows for a nice diversification across factors, across stocks, along with more of an ESG, focus.
Great. And you've mentioned your clients there. Have you seen a difference in what they're asking for recently?
Yeah, it's been really exciting to see, frankly. I mean, I think that everyone's ambition levels are just rising. I've obviously talked a little bit about climate today, but that has just been a huge focus of our client base. And I think, what went from can we integrate, a low carbon consideration maybe a couple of years ago has now really turned the dial to say, what are we missing here? What blind spots do we have in relation to forward-looking climate-related risks, in terms of forward-looking climate-related opportunities? What companies are actually well-suited to thrive as this world, potentially transitions and as the regulation increases? I think the net zero ambition in the run-up to COP26 is just been huge. And so we have a lot of clients really asking us, how can we achieve that? How can we start to decarbonize our portfolio? And more importantly, for certain investors, decarbonize the global economy and have our capital help to do that. So I think that's, been a really big focus. And it's just, to me, it's really interesting to see how those ambition levels are rising and people just want to be more impactful with their investments.
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing a lot of focus on the net zero commitments, but moving on from that into, like you say, the how, and even from the group level into the portfolios as well, and how those are going to be decarbonised. So having worked across a broad range of strategies, what areas of ESG are you finding are doing well and which need more focus?
Sure. I think there's still a lot of work to do in even areas that are fairly well developed in ESG. So climate's a great example. Today, there are actually a lot of different data sets that have very interesting and unique climate data. Companies are starting to do a better job of disclosing, although there's still a long way to go there. So I actually would probably consider climate fairly, well-rounded at this point. To me, the social side, I think, is where it's lacking. We have a lot of interest in this starting to pop up with clients, whether it's kind of social justice investing, diversity-focused investing, and, the data on that is still pretty sparse. So I think, we're doing some unique things where we can incorporate text analysis to really kind of get under the hood of companies and understand their practices. But in terms of, the actual reported and disclosed data and the vendor provided data, I think that's an area where we feel it's lacking still.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that. So just to finish off then, we always end on a more fun question, which is, what is your favorite sustainable drink or snack?
Oh, it's funny. I'm kind of a packaging freak. So I would have to say that particularly during the pandemic, my husband got really into like homemade things and making bread from scratch and making granola bars from scratch. So anything in that regard is probably my favorite. Anytime that we can go to a bulk food store and get, something that's not in packaging and just get, nuts and snacks and, berries, things like that. That's always kind of my go-to. I think that it's kind of related to the ESG investing side. Obviously, pollution and plastic waste is a huge investment theme. So I think we try to embody that in our own personal lives, and anything that we can snack on that's not packaged gets a A+ in my book. So.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot more of those sort of refill stores popping up near me. So great to see it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful.